Statues, they don't move, they're made of stone, they don't move. That's pretty much the definition of a statue, and Elder Scrolls Oblivion is loaded with them, from all the ones in the Imperial City to the Daedric monuments dotted throughout the province. But there is one in particular that is a little strange, and that is the one in the city of Bruma. Unlike every other solid rock object in the game, this one has been known to do things that some would consider unnatural. So today we are going to take a look at the statue that isn't a statue at all. Elder Scrolls Oblivion has a lot of weird quirks, from floating paintbrushes to double faces, but this statue right here might be my favorite. For starters, this thing does not exist at the beginning of the game. It only appears after completing the quest Battle for Bruma and then entering Cloud Ruler Temple. As soon as you do that, bam! Statue. Also, this thing isn't of just anybody. It is an exact, perfect copy of you. Well, your character. It has your hair, your weapons, your armor, and even your weaknesses. For example, if you were a vampire when you were given the statue, then it will have vampirism as well, and it'll even take sun damage. However, it does not contain any of your torches, because if it did, then this would happen. But by far the most interesting fact about this statue is that, well, it's an NPC. It's not a static object. But you see, most NPCs are walking around, doing stuff, talking to people. But this one doesn't do any of that. Because if it did, that'd be really weird. But what if it did? Well, fortunately, that's not gonna happen. The Bethesda employee that coded this statue made sure of that by rendering this NPC unconscious. But we can get around that by resurrecting the statue, and suddenly he's a living, breathing NPC. This not only resets his statue pose to allow him to move freely, but it also forces him to lose his statue texture. However, he is still giant and slightly terrifying.
You're the Divine Crusader.
As creepy as this can be, though, it can get even creepier, because this was not the only time Bethesda did something like this. They did something far, far worse. If we hop on over to Skyrim, we can find some mannequins. Seemingly innocent. Well, okay, they're not that innocent. After all, mannequins are pretty creepy on their own, but they aren't that bad. You know, as long as they don't move, which they do. It may sound like a living nightmare, but for Skyrim players who purchased the Honeyside home in Riften, it was a reality. Because when they entered their home and went into the basement, they discovered their mannequins in the middle of walking off their pedestals, with their eyeless faces staring straight into their soul. Now that's pretty creepy, but why does it happen? Well, obviously these mannequins are just like the statue. They're both NPCs, but the statue never moves on its own. It's always just a statue. But the reason why these guys do, though, has to do with how the level loads. You see, they also have a script that ensures they don't move, but sometimes that script does not load fast enough. So for just a second, when you enter the building, the mannequins come alive. Then the script finally does load and the mannequins freeze in place. And that's when you find them in positions they should not have been in. Now, for most Skyrim players, this is the worst thing they will ever have to deal with, but on very rare occasions, the game will fail to load the mannequin script completely. And instead of entering their home to find them frozen, they will find them still walking around and looking at you. But don't worry, they won't hurt you. Or at least they're not supposed to. Interacting with them, however, will enable the script and return them to their mannequin status. Now, if you thought it couldn't get any creepier, then you should know that these mannequins are actual ghosts. At least in programming terms, that is, because in the video game engine, they are set to is ghost, which just means you can't hurt them or damage them or kill them in any way. It's not that weird. But most interesting of all is the way that Bethesda made these NPCs look like mannequins. They did it by creating an entirely unique mannequin race for them to be a part of. But because of that decision, that also means we can change the race of the mannequins and therefore change their appearance. I don't know why you'd want to, though, because then they become even more terrifying. But as interesting as changing a mannequin's race is, there is something far better we can do with this knowledge. And you might have already guessed what that is. Since the mannequins are a unique race in the game's code, and we create our character by choosing a race within that code, that means we can become a mannequin ourselves. In order to do this, you have to input set race mannequin, spelled MANAKIN. It's misspelled. Then suddenly you will transform into a mannequin. Although, unfortunately, your head will not change, so really, you're just part mannequin.
Aren't you embarrassed?
A little. So we now know how these guys were made, but we still have yet to answer the biggest question. Why NPCs? Why not just create a unique static object that is programmed to wear armor and does not move at all? If anything, it would certainly be less creepy, and you wouldn't have to worry about it suddenly walking around. But developing an entirely new object takes time and resources, and is also unnecessary. Because NPCs already do all of that. They can wear any armor in the game, and you can force them into any pose you want. So it would be a lot easier and quicker to just use them. This solution becomes even more of an obvious choice for the Oblivion statue. They need an object that looks exactly like your character, as well as have its exact equipment, which would be really difficult. Unless you could just copy that character, double its size, slap a stone texture over it, and bingo bango, you have a perfect statue. Most of the time. For some reason, my statue has no pants. To some, this may sound like it's the lazy option, but you have to realize that video game developers face these kinds of problems all the time. And being able to come up with clever solutions like this make your job easier, which allows you to focus on more important aspects of the game. Besides, now that we know exactly how these guys work, they really don't seem so creepy anymore. So next time you notice some mega weird aspect of a video game, just remember, it could be a lot worse. If you're looking for more spooktacular videos, make sure to check out my top 5 spookiest quests in Oblivion. I'll see you there.